This is the Weather Lounge here at WeatherWorks.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to the Weather Lounge. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and our podcast comes to you from our WeatherWorks headquarters here in Hackettstown, New Jersey. And joining me, as always, is my good buddy and co-host, meteorologist Mike Mahalik. Mike, welcome
Hey,
back to the Weather Lounge.
it's time for a fresh new episode. I'm
Yes.
happy to be here as always.
Yeah. So, Mike, it's been a frustrating winter. Parts of the country have seen their fair share of snow, more so out west this year. And it's been kind of lackluster here in the Northeast. But you know, there's always signs. We're working towards, I think, a colder pattern here towards the end of winter. That, of course, remains to be seen. But it has been a frustrating winter here in the Northeast for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're a snow lover, you always want it to be snowy, of course. But there's always going to be a part of the country that, just isn't going to work out as well as others. But just because there's not a lot of snow going on doesn't mean that you can't be still taking advantage of the situation, taking advantage of the mild weather, maybe getting out there doing some other type of jobs to keep things going, especially if you're in the snow and ice industry.
This is true, and that's exactly what the topic of this episode is all about. We're here to talk about how businesses who focus on snow removal in the winter season can take advantage of a milder pattern, which is basically what we've seen, other than a couple of Arctic shots here and there. Perhaps these things are things that our clients and listeners are already doing, but if not, you may want to pick up on some new ideas here in this episode and maybe even apply to your business.
Yeah, right, Brad. And to help us out with the topic today is someone who knows how to take advantage of mild winters. His name is Tom Canete. He is the owner and CEO of Canete Snow Management. And we'll be with him right after we take this short break. So don't go away.
Hey everybody, well, how many times have you been burned by a weather forecast? Well, probably a few, and it might have cost your business thousands. WeatherWorks is different. We have over 30 meteorologists to give you forecasts, notifications, and weather advice 24/7. Now that could certainly help when it comes down to making those crucial decisions, but there are even more products than that in which WeatherWorks offers, from weather data to historical reports. Call us at 908-850-8600 or visit us on the web at weatherworksinc.com. And oh, don't forget, when you think weather, think WeatherWorks.
And we're back. Welcome to the Weather Lounge once again. And before the break, we mentioned that we have a special guest on today's episode. His name is Tom Canete. And again, he's the CEO and owner of Canete Snow Management. Tom, thanks for coming on the podcast and welcome to the Weather Lounge.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
So, Tom, you have an award-winning company in New Jersey. You've been dealing with WeatherWorks for a long time as well. Tell us how it all started, because clearly you have a passion for what you do.
Oh, I do. I definitely do. I mean, I have a few companies, actually 6 operating companies that I own. My snow company is my favorite. I have so much passion for snow. It started at the age of 9, when I was 9 years old. I had a paper route, had like 70 customers, used to have to go out on a Saturday to collect the money. So basically I asked all 70 on the first Saturday that I was collecting, for the papers. I said, listen, I cut grass. If you're interested, I can cut your grass on the weekends or after school or whatever. So I ended up the first Saturday out of the gates. The first week I had a paper out of 70 customers, and I ended up getting 8 ones also that same week. So, those people, I did their driveways with snow, shovel, then a snow blower. And then by the time I was, I turned to 17, I bought my first truck when I was 16. I spent the whole year. I was very mechanical.
You were able to retire at 18, weren't you?
I was trying, but that wasn't in the cards. And you know what? I'm a type A person. So I'm 55 now. I don't see myself retiring anytime soon. So, by the time I got my license, I had, I don't know, so many driveways and things like that. And then little by little, we started filtering parking lots. And that's where we've ranked 12th in the country in our size of our snow company. We do a lot of big stuff. We had, I don't know if you remember, back in 2014, the Super Bowl was at MetLife Stadium over here in East Rutherford, New Jersey. We ended up getting the contract for that. And of course, a week before the Super Bowl, we had 14 inches of snow that we had to remove. We got that done. I mean, I had my contract is anywhere from 200 to 500 people to bring in that stadium, clean it out, and we nailed it. We got it. It was like a day and a half, no more than 2 days. We got all 14 inches of snow out. So I'm just passionate about that. I do a lot of guest speaking. I do expert witness work for attorneys, which actually helps me on my end with my contracts, because I see what these guys are looking for, when it comes to slip and falls, and the devil's in the detail when it comes to snow contracts, so yeah, so that's basically it. All aspects of the snow company, I'm heavily involved in that, as far as the equipment and all our standard operating procedures, everything, even down to the salt. Like I'm involved with buying salt directly in from Egypt, or bringing it in on a ship, So all little aspects of the snow where you can save money, make money, get involved with snow. I'm part of it.
It's funny that you have almost a similar kind of story where I started, because I actually started in the landscaping and lawn care business. My buddy's friend had a company. I started working with them on the side when I was probably 14 or 15 years old. And I had a passion for weather too. And I used to get out there, shoveling, plowing snow, whatever, of course, when I was old enough to drive. But I just took it the other direction. Instead of going into the landscaping field, I went into the weather field, to take it from that direction and figure out why this happens, and to help you guys um, plan so much better for these
Well, I
systems.
tell you what, we really rely on you guys, on meteorologists, to forecast. It helps us game plan how we're going to approach the storm, manage it throughout the storm, and even after the storm, what the temperatures are going to be. Are there going to be winds where it's going to dry out things, or whatever the case is? But without you guys, our job would be a lot more difficult than it already is.
Right, and that's something we really strive.
And it's not an easy job, because if you guys are wrong, if you guys you're wrong, it's like you're the bad guy,
100%. We understand. We understand you guys are planning based on what we were telling you. So if something goes wrong within that forecast, the timing's a little bit off, or there's a little more, a little less snow, we understand that that really impacts you. And that's why we really strive to be the best at communicating the weather to you guys, that it's most effective um, for your operations, that you can make decisions based on it, and not just saying that, hey, 3 to 6 inches of snow is going to fall, but we're trying to nail down, when is that first inch going to fall for you guys. um, is it going to stick on pavements? Is it going to be variable? When will it start sticking on pavements? That way you can plan your attack on that storm a lot better, and it's not just a general forecast.
That is correct.
So when we look at the weather, Tom, it's a year-round consideration. Yes, it's super important during the winter, especially when it comes to snow and ice. But there's also benefits of having this weather information year-round. And I mean, how would you use the weather information even when it's not snowing and it's more of a milder pattern?
We use it year round, regardless. We have to with our landscape company. We also own a garden center, which also relies on the weather. But as far as planning the jobs that are going on, planning the crews that are going to go out, if it's going to be 100 degrees one day, we're going to start the guys a little earlier, knock them off at 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon to prevent the heat stroke thing, or we're going to just show up at with waters. The managers are going to be loaded with waters and Gatorades and things like that for the guys. And as far as rain, if we have to make like a delayed start, we do that at times. If the rain's going to stop by 9 o'clock, instead of bringing the crews in for 7, maybe we'll bring them in at 8:30. So it stops at 9; they're already out of the yard. We do that quite often. But we rely on the weather year round. We really do, for planning our projects and keeping the crews moving in the right direction.
So when we get into these milder patterns like we've been having in this winter, how do you, as a landscaper side and contractor side, how do you take advantage of the quieter, snow removal side of things?
I'm still trying to figure out what we did to piss off the snow gods. I really am. Like nothing. We didn't drop our. I don't know what we did. I really don't. We didn't drop our plows one time this whole winter. Not
Yeah,
one time.
we believe me, if we can get some snow into this pattern, our meteorologists are looking for it too. Unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out. Every time the pattern has looked on the cold side, it just ended up being more in the way of dry. It's just cold and dry, rather than getting that moisture to meet up with the cold air this year.
Well, and just as an example, like this past December had a look to it, at least the upper level look and the upper air look to it. It resembled something that in a previous winter brought with it lots of snow. We had basically 1 week of cold weather around Christmas, but the pattern itself was there. It just seemed like the atmosphere didn't take advantage of it, and it was so frustrating as a meteorologist because we're like thinking this is it, and when we're gonna get like storm after storm after storm, and it's something just it was always something that, like Mike said, there was something that would not occur, that wouldn't meet up at the right time between the moisture and the cold and vice versa. So I mean, it's just been really frustrating on our end too.
I see some Arctic, some cold air mass coming down through Canada and everything. Like I think toward the end of this week. So maybe that'll help a little bit next week. We'll see.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a little more favoritism, I should say, towards getting some colder air towards the end of February into early March. So there is that chance in there for sure. But with this winter's track record, we don't want to be, blaring the trumpets out there saying, "Here comes the snow," because
Exactly.
it's very hard to do that at this point in time, especially as we uh, get closer to spring. Um, but when it is mild like this, there's got to be things that can keep your company driving forward and still, you know, doing well and making profit. So, I mean, what's involved here? Do you think? Is there tree work involved or hardscaping? Just give us a rundown of what you guys have been doing.
Definitely hardscape. We have some big commercial jobs that we had signed and we kind of stopped in December, and then a couple that we actually just started up this winter because it's there's we have guys available to work. The weather is favorable. The ground is not frozen, so let's get these guys out the door and start working. So we got a jump start on two of the new commercial projects. We're working on them. So we're taking advantage of that. And actually, we've been doing a little bit of planting too. You could still plant as long as the ground is not frozen. You put the plants in, make sure they're mulched in, because the mulch will take up any frost that may occur. So we've been doing some of that, but mainly the hardscape. Tree work is definitely a good thing to do. We don't do, I used to have a full tree service, bucket truck, chippers, the whole 9 yards. I just sub it all out now. I'm done with the tree work. But we do have our tree guys doing some of our work right now. Right now is a great time to prune and shape the trees because there's no leaves on the trees. What else do we do? Firewood. I started a business. This has got to be 30 years ago. Firewood. We have a very big clientele of firewood customers. Most of the firewood has already been delivered. We start that right after Labor Day. But I still have guys making firewood, and it'll be around for next year. So let's get a jump start on it. But that was always one of our things to keep guys busy in the wintertime is firewood. Another thing that we're doing is we're prepping all our landscape equipment, just going through it top to bottom, cleaning, power washing, just going through, inspecting it, changing the fluids and greasing, painting the insides of the enclosed trailers that we have, that all the equipment goes down the road in, just making everything ready to roll. So when we pull the trigger come March, we're ready to roll. The guys just come in and go. What else do we do? Internal office procedures. Like we work on our standard operating procedures. We're always tweaking and trying to update and fine tune how we have meetings, things that went wrong last year. Let's improve them for this year. And especially with the bad winter we have, the revenue is not there. So whatever we do in landscape, we have to be very efficient. Try to be as efficient as we can and make as much money as you can. Similar to what we had back in the when we had the recession back in the late 2000s, where we kept everything moving, but people weren't spending the money that we're used to because there was a recession going on. Things I used to do, I don't really do much of it anymore, but some of the guys that might be listening to this or ladies are foreclosures. So I used to pick up 2 foreclosure houses back like in October, November every year. And I used to put my guys in between snowstorms inside to gut the houses, to paint them. I was always lucky to have guys on hand for our construction crews. I know how to do sheetrock, tile work. Sometimes I lucked out with that. And so I used to pick up a couple houses and, I used to renovate them and either flip them, sell them, or rent them come spring. And that was something that we kept the guys busy with. Painting is another thing. If you want to, throughout the year, we have customers that they like us. People like to do business with people they like. So we have customers that want us to do like everything, So like we'll tell them, like maybe in the wintertime we'll do some painting for you. So I put some guys inside. We can do some house painting. We've done fireplaces, stone fireplaces in the wintertime. What better is that? The guys, they build outdoor kitchens outside, and if it's snowing and the weather's not favorable for that, why not go inside? So these are jobs that you can line up throughout the year and just pull the trigger in the wintertime in between, snowstorms to keep the guys busy, or in a low winter like this, so low snow winter that we're having.
I've never heard that foreclosure. I mean, you're talking about like flipping houses, basically, right?
Uh-huh. Oh, I got very heavily involved in it, and it kind of started where I got all these guys, and I can't have them going out and finding factory jobs or finding different things. So I think one winter I actually picked up 3 properties, and I always picked them up in the fall. Right now the foreclosure market is not what it used to be, and I'm talking back in the 90s and the 2000s. The foreclosures were great. Now some of these properties that you'll find are the prices are what you would expect to pay for a realtor. It's not what it used to be, but it used to be very lucrative. But yeah, it was definitely a good gig.
Yeah, I could definitely tell, Tom, that you are certainly an entrepreneur when it comes to business, because I like how you're finding basically any avenue that can potentially get you some extra revenue during the winter season. And I think a lot of people, not to say they aren't, but maybe they just kind of open your mind to some new things that you may not have a lot of experience in, but if it's paying some of those bills, hey, why not give it a shot?
Well, every one of my businesses, like I said, I have 6 operating companies. Each one of them, it feeds off of a need from another one of my main companies. My main company was Canete Landscape, and then it broke off to Canete Snow Management, and then we moved into a facility where we are in Wayne right now on a 4-acre site, to Canete Garden Center. Okay, so we have a garden center. Then I have Big Dog Equipment. We have so much equipment, it's ridiculous. So my company, we buy and sell equipment. We use equipment. So all my trucks and equipment that are used for landscape, for snow, they lease the equipment from Big Dog. Okay, and Big Dog sells a lot of equipment on a yearly basis. I also rent equipment to other contractors through Big Dog. Okay. And then I was running into this problem where it was costing me a fortune. I'm talking equipment, I'm talking big loaders, bucket loaders and things like that. To move this equipment around was costing a fortune. And a lot of it we were picking up out in Illinois. That's where we buy brand new loaders and they come from Illinois. So I'm paying a fortune. So you know what? I went out and bought 3 road tractors. I have low boys. And I keep my drivers move equipment now, and then we'll drop equipment off at other, people that are renting from us. And then, all right, so after all the loaders are picked up, we start picking them up in the summer. And by the time, November, December, by Thanksgiving, usually all the loaders are out on their sites. I bought a couple flatbeds. So now my guys are running, they have a run almost every day from Pennsylvania, 2.5 hours from where we are, to Brooklyn or Queens, dropping off brick. Like I don't care what it is, whatever it takes, these trucks have to stay moving because now I own them and I got drivers that need work. Last winter, we didn't do it this winter, but last winter we were working for Amazon, Trader Joe's, TJ Maxx, and it was motor only, which means just the truck. So we're hooking up to their trailers, and this is like Christmas time. Like the guys are working 7 days a week. we're done moving equipment. I got nothing for these guys. So here you go, guys. Here you got the trucks. Let's go deliver to Trader Joe's or TJ Maxx. I don't care. Amazon, So it offshoots into different directions. And then this is my final thing. And it backfired on me this year, but you know what? It's not like it's a total loss. We buy a lot of salt. I have a separate company called Salt Depot. So I went in and I bought a ship of salt from Egypt. Like was very, very expensive to buy a whole ship. Okay. It's not snowing. We deliver to our clients, our customers and stuff already, but nobody's reordering because nobody's using anything. So I'm stuck with so much salt throughout this whole year, so it's okay. It won't go bad. We'll use it next year. Hopefully we get some snow next year. So
That's what I was going to ask. You have this big stockpile of salt. That's not something that goes bad. That's something you can keep on hand. That's something you can use for next year. You don't have to get rid of it, correct?
no, it's there. We'll have it tarped up correctly, and it'll be there for next year.
Yeah, I guess moisture is the only something that could really ruin that, right? But as long as you keep it dry, it's fine.
Yeah, as long as you keep it tarped up, And not only that, I got pallets upon pallets upon pallets, which we pick up ourselves with our flatbed trailers of ice melt, calcium, bagged ice melt. So that's also going to have to sit tarped for the winter, also for the summer, also.
Well, the good thing for you, Tom, is that I remember several years ago, I don't know how long it was, but we did do some analysis into winters that were very, very low on snowfall, basically. And it seemed like it's really hard to get another lean winter right after a very, very lean winter. So it almost like balances itself out. I know it sounds like very like simplistic, like, oh, we had no snow last year, we're going to get more this year, but it's extremely rare, almost like I don't even know what the percentage was, but extremely rare to have another very, very lean winter after one that was that way. So there should be a big uptick next winter without even looking at any type of global patterns and things like that our long range guys do.
Just from historical
Just from
data,
historical
right?
data and climatological perspective, that's what we generally see. So that salt that you have should be good. We'll be able to work on that next year. That's for sure.
So as we have this milder winter now, what I mean, would you rather have a salt? I mean, granted, we still have some time left. I would say another month of, we know there's always shenanigans here in the Northeast in March. I mean, it could either be 70 degrees or we can have a snowstorm too. Now, would you rather have a decent snowstorm still at this point, or are you just ready to just throw in the towel?
Oh no, we definitely want,
Okay.
definitely want snow.
I was sure ready just to move on to spring.
I'll take even one plowing and a couple saltings just to help out.
Yeah, I hear you.
The amount of preparation that goes into getting all the trucks fitted with the salters, putting the salters back on because they're out landscaping throughout the year, getting the plows put on. I mean, we test this all in October. We put the plows on, we put the salters on, and it's done on a Saturday. And then at the end of the day, we test them. We always have a mechanic on right there working with the guys putting them on. Anything that's broke, we fix it, and then at the end of the day, everything comes off, so we go back out on landscape on Monday. But the amount of preparation, delivering the machines to the jobs, and it's a big undertaking, all logistics.
Yeah, something would be nice, that's for sure. I know a lot of guys are working on it, and look, I mean, uh, like Brad said, we still do have time. We've still had big storms going into March. It's not out of the ordinary. So I gotta imagine we're gotta get a good storm in there somewhere here before the year is out, where at least we get a plowable event.
And not only that, Mike, yeah, a couple of years ago, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but we had a pretty significant pattern change in February of 2018 at the end of it, and then we got just crushed in March of 2018. I think there were 4 nor'easters. Not saying this is going to happen. I'm not saying there's any kind of reasoning for this, but it happens. You never know. There could be a change to the entire overall pattern where we do have at least some kind of winter going forward. So we can't, even if it's seasonable for March, it does spell snow for the Northeast still. It's still cold enough.
Now, would you guys, being what you said, back in 2018, were you able to, middle of February, see, like your crystal ball can read a little bit, a few weeks out maybe, were you able to kind of foresee March being as heavy as it was, or April, I mean, not April, the end of February, and were you able to foresee that?
I believe when I'm thinking back that we were able to, likely about 2 weeks or so out, we were able to see that pattern was going to start shifting into that very active pattern. There are times when it's very evident that pattern will change. I remember one, might have been the middle of January one year, where we saw a pattern shift where this high pressure blocking pattern was going to move over Greenland and retrograde into Canada, which basically says to the cold air, hey, get out of here. And it shoves it into the US. And that was very evident that would happen. And we knew that February was going to be a big month, and it just right like clockwork. I know we went on a local radio station that we do the weather for, and I went on for an interview and I said, this is going to happen. And to this day, they still say to me, you were right on back in that February. I can't believe how accurate you were with that pattern change, and which is so great. Now, currently, from what we're seeing, there's nothing that's extremely evident that the pattern's going to change. Like, we do see signs of that happening, during probably over the next week, where there's something called a sudden stratospheric warming that can happen, which basically allows the polar vortex over the northern half of the globe to break up into pieces and allow colder air to funnel into the United States and over into Europe and things like that. So we do see that trying to get going, and that could impact our weather. There's usually a bit of a delay, maybe a week or two delay, until you start seeing some effects from that. So we do see towards the end of the month here in February into early March that is a period we have to watch to see this pattern change. It's still going to be active. Maybe we get enough cold air finally working in here to get some decent snows coming through.
At least a better risk for some, yeah.
But I would say this, I mean, even though I give you that, I don't see it like being so evident and so stark that we know this is going to happen. It's favored to happen, but I wouldn't say for a definite, oh yeah, we're going to get slammed. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind.
And a lot of times with these events too, this is very high up in the atmosphere. We're talking like above 40, 50,000 feet. Now if it can translate all the way down to the surface here, that's the question, and we're not positive about if there's you still need some kind of a, almost like the upper level to talk to the lower level and say, okay, come on down, like Price is Right. If not, it's going to keep all that cold air up in the higher parts of the atmosphere, and it doesn't really translate down here. So again, it's like Mike says, it's very fickle, these kinds of things, and sometimes they work out where it's a colder trend, and sometimes it's just like as is. So,
And the other trouble is too, when you see this breakup happening, it's very possible that the cold air could go into Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, instead of going over the northern portion of the United States here. So um, something we kind of need to work the kinks out here through the end of the season. But certainly some chances, that's for sure.
So let's touch on one last thing here, Tom. Snow removal contracts. Let's talk about contracts a little bit, because they're different every winter. I'm sure you have some contracts that are year round versus per event or per winter. How a winter with this much variability to it, and like how does that differentiate between other contracts?
Well, thank God for they're called seasonal contracts, and I don't really go lower than 35% of our portfolio. This year, I think we're at about 40% of our portfolio are seasonal, so we get paid regardless if it snows or not, and it's broken out in either 5 or 6 months worth of payments. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to be the one signing those checks. The people that have the contracts because they're paying for, but the best way to get a seasonal contract would be a 3-year contract. Okay. Because over 3 years, you guys know better than I do. You're going to get a heavy, middle, and light, not this light usually, as light as we have this year, where you're doing a lot of nothing. We've salted a few times and that's it. But those are the contracts. And then, so basically we were able to cover our salaries, our equipment payments, our truck payments, keep the lights on basically with our seasonal contracts. Because listen, if it snows, we have to be here. We can't be out of business. We have to have workers, and that kind of stuff. So that's what's good about the seasonal. And then, the per event, your per push and hourly contracts, those are the other three type of contracts, were filtered in between the other 60% of our contracts. And basically at this point, that's gravy money, because the seasonals kind of, we figure it out where it takes care of all our expenses over winter.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan, honestly. Keep everything running, keeping everybody paid with those seasonals, and then anything on top of that is bonus with the other accounts. And that's something we try to assist you guys with. I don't know if you've used it before, but we have these snowfall climatologies. We like to call them snowtistics, where we can break down basically the last 5, 10, 15, even 30 years, into, hey, what your averages are, what your extremes are, what your event counts look like, how many coating to inch events, how many 6 to 12-inch events that you're typically going to see at a particular location. So we try to give that information to you guys in the snow and ice industry so that you can plan for that variability, and maybe that's help for you. Like, I don't know how you guys structure everything, but maybe that helps you create some ceilings and things like that when it comes to your contract negotiations.
Well, it definitely does, because the best contract is a seasonal contract. The best type of seasonal contract is something with a cap. So if it's 45 inches, 48 inches, 50 inches, whatever it is, that's where your analytics would come in handy to say, all right, you know what, Cranford, New Jersey, let's see what the average snowfall is in that area over 3 years or 10-year average, whatever you guys do. And that gives us a good, guideline to where we want to put our seasonal cap number. I only have one contract that it's called a floor. So if you don't get the amount of snow, it's a seasonal with a floor and a cap, but I don't do floors. So this was presented to us by the people that own the management company. So this year it's going to work in their favor. We're not going to get the total cap money. We're going to have to give back some, at the end of the season. But luckily, we only have one of those contracts. So that way, it makes it fair for both parties.
Right. And I mean, I've listened to some contractors in the past, and they kind of equate seasonal contracts to almost like an insurance plan, or eh,
Exactly.
you always
Correct. That is
have,
correct.
yeah, you always have car insurance, right? For that time you get into an accident. Um, but sometimes you don't. You might be years before you get into any type of fender bender, but you still pay into that insurance because the time it does, you're covered, you're ready to go, you're prepared for it. And on your guys' side, yeah, it didn't snow much, but hey, if there's 2 feet of snow, you are covered. Your property is covered, and everybody's taken care of.
And it definitely is an insurance policy if you want to look at it like that. Definitely, definitely. And that's why we do it, because of for these winters that you've had like this. This, I don't remember a winter this low in a long time. But it's definitely a good thing we have our percentage on our 40% this year of seasonals. Definitely a good thing.
And maybe this changes things for the future for people. Maybe they're going to consider a different structured contract, or maybe, like you said, increasing that seasonal portfolio with the contracts.
I do a lot of guest speaking, and actually this Thursday I have a full day of class. The New Jersey Landscape Contractors Association. It's like from 8 to 4. It's a whole snow class that I'm putting on. And one of the big things, one of my PowerPoints, is talking about the types of contracts in your portfolio. And I'm a big advocate of seasonal contracts. I know a lot of guys, like I didn't really like seasonal contracts. We were forced to take them. You want this account? You want to work for this big management company? They want a seasonal account. I'm like, okay. So then all of a sudden you got a bunch of these contracts and it doesn't snow. And I'm like, you know what? This is not too bad. So I came up with the ratio of 35 to 40. Try to keep it below 40%. I know a lot of guys that they're totally against seasonals. Come spring, you have a bad winter like this, and they're selling equipment, they're selling trucks, they're selling. One guy, oh my God, he had, I think, 5 or 6 tractor trailer loads of like ice melt that he's selling. He had it in a warehouse and he's selling it because he needs to pay his payments, his mortgages, everything, and he had no income all winter. So, rather than, he had to liquidate what he had. You can avoid all that with seasonal contracts. So to this day, he has seasonal contracts. I got in his ear, and he now, I mean, he lived it. He went through that, having to sell things.
Right. And we definitely come across a lot of them, even with just talking with our clients about the upcoming weather, and some of them are very stressed, and some of them are looking for every possible little event and is this or going to happen or not going to happen. I need to be prepared. And some are in the vein of, hey, I'm good, don't worry about it. So right there you could probably see who has more seasonal contracts versus who has more per inch contracts. We definitely come across two types of people when we talk to them on the phone. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's sad. It really is, because if this is what you do and you need this money, you rely on it. People have families, mouths to feed, keep a roof over your head, and it doesn't snow like this, and it'll put a hurt.
And it's been a tough couple of years. Going back to COVID, of course, and then the last 3 years have not been easy for a lot of folks. And between this and this lean winter, and then all the staffing issues I'm sure folks had with the COVID, and it's just it just seems like the last 3 years have felt like 10 years in my life. I don't know why. It's just it's been a very slow 3 years for some reason.
Yeah. Well, 3 years ago, so 3 years ago, the winter it was okay. We had some salting events and maybe a couple plowings. Then February opened up the floodgates. It was amazing.
I do
The
remember
amount of
that.
snow, we were getting snow almost. I remember February 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. It was snowing every day. It was crazy. We were moving. It went from having a very light winter to having to relocate, haul snow off sites, to make room for more parking. It was amazing. We had a great February, and then it snowed into March. Not much, maybe first week of March we got a little something. Then last year was I don't think we plowed more than a couple times last year, 2 to 3 times maybe. And then salting. Salting is great. You make a huge amount of money if you price it right, and you buy your salt right. You make, because you have less labor on the road, less trucks. The guys are going, instead of plowing 3 parking lots or 2 parking lots, they're whipping through 15, 18 parking lots salting, in the same amount of time frame, So that was last winter. This year, I think we're at event 5 or 6. We cover a pretty big area in New Jersey. We go down Brunswick, Cranford, Edison, down that way, all the way up to like West Milford. And we go into Fishkill, New York also. So Fishkill is nice. You get snow up there when you get nothing or rain here, but it's nothing. To have that many events is nothing. I don't even think we salted every, like the few events that we had this year. I don't think we did 100% of our customers. It was broken up a little bit. The last one was more of a southern and a north, like a western event where we didn't have anything. I'm in Wayne, nothing in Wayne at all. And as soon as you hit a town called Totowa, Clifton, then we start salting down there. It's like, and Totowa is literally you could be in total at 4 miles from where we are in Wayne. New Jersey is one of those states that, with the elevations, and it's just very, very weird. You talk to people around the country, and they're like, "What? Really? That happens over there?" I'm like, "Yeah, because of the mountains and
The urban heat
elevation.
island too gets
Very,
involved there. You get into that Newark and Rutherford. I mean, all the basically the hot spots of the northeast part of Pennsylvania or of New Jersey, and then you get out, just a little bit outside of the urban areas, and like you said, it could be a whole different world.
Yeah, I mean that's just the nature of the Northeast, close to the coast. I mean, you don't typically see as much snow. I mean, further inland, and it's only talking about 50 miles or so. You could be getting clobbered. That's what makes the weather interesting and also very difficult to predict at the same time. Here on the East Coast, companies like you guys are just focusing on, man, where is the heaviest going to fall, and that's the most difficult thing to.
Right, and like Tom said, yeah, like Tom says, some of his properties get impacted a lot more than others, and it's just like like he didn't even go to 100% of his properties yet this year, and here we are, late February. It's crazy.
Well, it's interesting that he said about the February a few years ago, where he was just one after the other after the other. I've noticed that recently. Probably over the last 5 years. I've been working here almost 15, and it just seems like there's always a point in the winter where you run into a 2 week stretch that's just one after the other, and you're working crazy hours all the time, and you're like, oh my god, is this ever going to stop? It's crazy. um Now that hasn't happened yet this
and I
year.
wish I had some of that this year. Those sleepless nights, man.
Yeah,
You're making money.
yeah, there was
And
there was several years ago where New England got hit with 120 inches of snow or something like that, and I think most of it fell during the month of February. And my forecasting job was almost fairly easy because every storm that came through was an all snow event. You knew there was going to be a lot. You started 3 4 days out thinking, hey, this is going to be a 6 to 12 inch event or more, so they already knew that they're getting into that significant event category. um, I wish I had some of that this year, honestly. A lot of the events.
Oh, I'm sure Tom's the same way too. I mean, just like us, we would rather just have a straightforward, 4 to 8 inch snowfall event.
Yeah.
It starts here, it ends in 8 to 12 hours. You go out, and you clean up, all this junk with no, it's going to change over to freezing rain. That's going to go back to snow. Then it may go back to some rain at the end. It's not only hard to forecast that, but it's hard to, like Mike had said earlier, communicate that to our clients and tell them, because they want specifics too. And truthfully, on our end, we can't say, oh, it's going to change. And Tom knows this, I'm sure. You can't say, oh, it's going to change the snow in Totowa at 2 a.m. It's frustrating on everyone's parts, and we understand, and I think our clients understand to a point. And like Tom said, we're not the bad guys. We're trying to do the same thing and communicate whatever we can to you guys.
Yep. And to talk about our forecast service just a little bit, that's where we're trying to shine for you guys. That's where we're trying to be better than what you're going to see on your phone app, or better than what you're going to see on the TV, so that you guys can plan and just take advantage of every possible minute, because we know it costs you tons of money to have all your crews out there, and there's nothing going on. So we're doing our best to try to get you in that. Here's when you're going to need to get out there to mobilize your crews, um, because we know time is money, and it always is. Almost everywhere is time is money. So it's the old adage, or whatever you want to call it. But that's what we're working to provide you guys, is the best information. So even in a lean winter, we can still give you that information where you can make it as profitable as possible when these tough storms hit.
well, that's definitely why I said when we first started talking, we need you guys. You know what I'm saying? It's even though you guys are the bad guys sometimes, you
Yeah, I
know,
know.
but it is what it is. It's, they say it changes like the weather, right? And the weather changes as it changes. You know.
Well, Tom, I think this was a really great talk.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I think there's a lot of good things that snow and ice contractors can pick up from this conversation. I hope they really take a lot from it.
And truthfully, Tom, we weren't planning on doing this podcast in February. We were because under the circumstances, this is why we're doing this podcast. We're hoping to have you on for different reasons at some point.
Hey, listen, anytime you guys need me, this is what I love snow.
Yeah.
So anytime you guys need to talk about something, and guaranteed the topic that you want to talk about, I've already talked to somebody or dealt with it somewhere along the line.
Right.
You know?
Well, we appreciate that for sure.
So we'll be sure to bring you on, Tom, next time when we're just getting slammed.
Yeah, that'll be the other one. Tom, let's talk about the last
Yeah.
4 blizzards that
Yeah.
moved through
How
here.
have you dealt with those? So let's let's hope
how to deal with a very active winter.
let's hope it's the other way around next year, and we can have the same conversation in 2024.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll do the podcast from the truck.
There you go.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's the thing. Yeah, the truck or the hotel room.
I
whatever.
still listen. I for years I used to run the storm from the office, and there's reasons why that happened. I would never I can't imagine ever not going out in a snowstorm. But there's something that happened one year that forced me to stay in the office, and my guys are like, Tom, please stay in the office. The storm ran so much smoother. You know, don't come out in the field no more. But that lasted for a few years, and then I ended up like getting good staff in my office where like I don't need to be here. So I bounce around. I don't have a set schedule. So I go around where we're running light, or I go out and inspect. I look to where our biggest payroll is, where we're spending the most money, and I'll go down there. We have one site that's like 200 people on that one site, so that's a big expense, So, I bounce around and I help and I bring coffees, and so, but I stay out there the whole duration of the storm. I love it, So.
Yeah, that's good. You're the guy out there, just checking up on things, making sure everything's going smoothly. Your guys are ready to go. They have some food and coffee. I remember one story from my plowing days. I had a storage center that I was doing, and I was so beat. I don't know how long I was out there working. It was definitely over 24 hours, and I had run out of coffee, and I'm just like, I just got to go get a coffee, go down to the Wawa or whatever it might be. And of course, I leave and my boss shows up at the site. So
where's Mahalik at?
Yeah. So I'm there at the Wawa, get my coffee, my phone starts ringing. Where the hell are you, man? What's going on? This place isn't even done, and you're not here. And I'm like, oh man, like that. Like I was struggling just to stay in the game and not run into any of those yellow concrete poles on the side of the buildings. You know what I'm saying? But you win some, you lose some. So it's nice that you're out there and providing, some coffee to your guys out there who might be out there working who knows how long.
Well, this is one cool thing that the other contractors might take away with. We did this years ago when the company was smaller, but now it's like I'd have to have a fleet of these things. We had a van, an old van, okay, and we converted it into. We had shelves and things like that, and we had fruits and different snacks, and we had like different cubby holes in there. Coffee. I think there was hot chocolate, and there was waters, and I had someone driving it around and stopping at sites and feeding my people. When we used to go to Restaurant Depot before a storm and just load it up. So that worked well for a bunch of years. Then now what happens? We got too spread out. So my managers, we'd go to Restaurant Depot, and then we would load their vehicles up, and they would stop out because now we could cover more distance. But it wasn't like one vehicle that was geared and set up for that, So then with MetLife, I took a golf cart that I had, and I built a bed on the back of it, and I called it the motivational mobile. Right? And I was go around, and my supervisors, because each supervisor is in charge of 20 or 30 workers, they would grade them. Right? These are the top 10 in this group. Right? So they come out and get their coffee, they get their snacks, whatever they want. Then the second batch would come out, and then the guys that were the slackers they'd have to wait. So so it worked out well. I mean, MetLife is great; they feed us, but this is like an in between thing. I would run around and And I was the guy on that thing. I liked it because I drove the golf cart and I got to check on the work, and reward the people that were doing a good job.
Great. Yeah, I love that idea. That's awesome.
But that helps too. That helps. That's huge when you bring food and coffee, this and that. You just heard it. You just said it yourself. You're out there for hours and hours and hours, and you're struggling to stay in the game. And it's huge to have someone tell you that they appreciate the work that you do, and you give them some food, whatever.
Believe me, if my boss would have showed up with a extra large coffee at that time, I would have probably been a lot more grateful than the other way around, where I was getting in trouble for leaving. But hey, Tom, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you being here with us on the podcast, and we got to do it again sometime.
Beautiful. Anytime you guys need something, give me a call.
Sounds great. Thanks again, Tom.
All right, Tom. Again, I appreciate you being here on the program. Thanks for being with us, and we'll certainly talk again another time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
So that is it for our podcast here on the Weather Lounge. Thanks for listening to the show. Remember, we'll have a new podcast every 2 weeks, so feel free to visit back on your podcasting app, and we'll have a lot of great information for you. Remember, we are WeatherWorks. You can find us at weatherworksinc.com and on all kinds of social media platforms. So thanks again for listening, everybody.